Hey everyone, welcome to week one episode of the CFL Weekly Show. It is Shane. I got Cole and Blake alongside us, as always, and Coach Phil will be joining us. He's just running a little bit late. Man, how are you guys? Excited? Week one is Thursday. We got the Red Blacks and Rough Riders kicking things off. We will be doing our picks this year, so that'll be at the end of the show like last year. Man, it's finally June. How are you guys feeling?
It's June, like it's here. We don't have to ask, is it June anymore? Like the CFL kickoff is or the season is kicking off earlier than it ever has, and it feels pretty darn good to have CFL football, regular season football back as of tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm excited as well, boys. I'm looking forward to it, especially Saturday, of course. But tomorrow, all the anticipation with the first game of the season is always exciting, and then even Friday's matchup. I believe it's Montreal. Um,
Montreal, Toronto, in Montreal.
Montreal, Toronto's another one that's interesting. Just to have CFL football back,
There's a
man, is
lot
gonna
of
be really fun.
there's a lot of interesting matchups I would say this week, Cole. Like the Saskatchewan Ottawa Shane notwithstanding, like a lot of people might pick Saskatchewan in that game, but like the other three games, I would argue with like Hamilton, Calgary, I would say are very similarly matched. Edmonton is probably going to be a better team. Like as much as you and I would disagree, there's a lot of people that don't know what BC is going to be this year. Like there's a potential for three, maybe four really good games in week number one of the season.
For sure.
We'll go through it when Coach Phil comes in, but I want to get into it with the CFL Top 50 list. They dropped it yesterday. It was kind of a weird list, to be honest, with how they did it.
Wait.
Sounds
So
like
Shane, before we start that, can we just like pass our condolences on to the Stiegel family with the unfortunate news of Chase Stiegel, the son of Milt, passing away?
yes, my bad. Our condolences to him and the Stiegel family, and during this time, uh, you know, what do you guys think of this? Just quickly before we jump into the CF like the top 50 conversation. Um, what do you guys think of TSN honoring him with this season?
I thought that was really cool of them. I thought it was pretty nice of them. Obviously, with Milt being, I think they said on the season preview show or whatever that, like, they act like, they are family, but like that's their teammate, right? When their teammate's hurting, I think it was a really cool and kind gesture to them. So I'm sure Milt will be getting a lot of hugs and stuff like that from the CFL family throughout the season when he's going throughout the many stadiums.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool too. Like they've done it before. I believe just last year, like they dedicated the whole season to Dutchy, Darren Detition. Of course, oh gosh, there's the other name who's escaping me right now. Chris
Schultz,
Schultz. Yeah, it just came back to me as
Schultzy,
you said it. But Chris Schultz. So it's like it's not completely out of the ordinary, but I think it was a really good job by TSN because the news, like most of us know that, or at least us three and coach and whatever know that a lot of that stuff is pre-filmed. Like it's not even though they say it's live, it's not technically as live as they'd make it out to be. So to be able to get that thrown together, because I believe the news came out late Monday night slash early yesterday morning about his passing. So to get that put in with the top 50, I thought was really well done by TSN.
for sure. And moving into the top 10 or the top 50, um, there were some questionable decisions. It kind of reinforces the uh, mindset of when you have media making these votes, it turns into a popularity contest, not necessarily a who actually deserves to be there. And I think the prime candidate, and this is no disrespect to him, but I think it's the big one is Trey Ford at 39, which doesn't seem big, but considering they had a guy like Darnell Sankey at like 40 in the 40s, it just seems like people have started to pick over hype versus production. And we've seen it multiple times in other leagues. But what are you guys' thoughts on how this top 50 turned out? And do you think it was just? Who do you think was missing? And who do you think was kind of picked higher than they should have?
Cole, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? You're on mute, buddy.
I thought it was interesting. Uh, Diego Sanchez was pretty um, opinionated when it came to, I think, a lot of like, I know I think he had like Roland Milligan #1 or something like that, and was kind of talking a little bit about what Shane was alluding to of like hype a little bit kind of taking over when it comes to media guys, seeing a name on a piece of paper versus maybe, actually going and watching games and stuff like that. So I think the other tricky thing is when you get a lot of media members involved, obviously it's not going to represent, I feel like, it's going to be kind of all over the place with votes going everywhere, as they kind of showed with how many top 10 votes went out and then how many first place votes. I think there was 14 recipient or players that got first place votes. So a lot of opinions. I think that's going to kind of come with the territory. Definitely some interesting selections throughout the list. When speaking about, I think, guys that should have been on the list, obviously, I think you guys know I'm pretty high on Nick Dembski. I thought he should have been on the list as well as another guy, Canadian receiver Sam Amulis. I thought he should have probably been on the list as well. And then, of course, Mr. Automatic, Sean White, I thought should have been probably on the list at maybe around the 45-50 area as well. So an interesting one. I think it did its job, right? Like it kind of sparked debate throughout CFL fan bases, and we're talking about it. So I think it's an interesting debate. But yeah, Blake, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I'll just correct you a little bit, Cole, because the only reason I know this is because the Lions posted the players that were on the top 50, and I believe Sean White did make the list at 43 or something like that. I thought I saw, unless
No, he was
I
off.
could. Okay, I could be wrong. Maybe the Lions misposted that, but I could have sworn I saw that earlier today.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, like the one that sticks out. Full transparency. I haven't even seen the list yet. I was out at dinner with another member of the CFL family last night. They had all the TVs on and they were replaying CFL Wired and CFL uh, like wacky moments and stuff like that. But the top 50 was actually something they didn't play, so I didn't see the list. But I know there was a couple um, shocks, if you will. Like I know, for example, someone that you and I have had on our show a few times, Cole and JC Abbott, kind of tweeted out that like his ballot was a little different than what ended up going on. Like I believe he had Zach. I believe, unless I'm again misquoting
I
his
have the
tweet.
tweet. I have the tweet up right now because I called him out on it.
Yeah, so he said he had Zach Collaros as the top rated quarterback, was it not?
He had no. He
Yeah, Jake
uh,
Stresna is number one.
the
Is the
highest
number
ranked
one
player
player.
that was taken off his list was Kolaros.
Yeah.
He had Jake Seresna as his #1 player. He had Sean White at 40, but he had Khalil Pimpleton at 15. Um, and as much as I love Pimpleton, and I've been on the Pimpleton train since I saw him day one at Red Blacks rookie camp in 2024, you cannot seriously tell me that he is the 15th best player in the league.
No.
Well, and this is why, and like he has him over a guy like Samuel Emelis, and it's like, and this is why I think recency bias and hype make these lists so invalid. And it's like it's cool and all, but realistically, Dalton Schoen went from like 40 like 26 because he missed the year due to an injury. It's
Yeah,
like
which is like, how does that even happen? But
yeah, like Bo Levi wasn't even on last year's list, and now he jumps up to like third.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and the thing is, like, we can argue about a guy that we did argue about a lot last year in Chad Kelly and whatever happened to him and blah blah blah, but he wasn't even on the list. Like, to not have someone like him who's
Chad Kelly?
eventually
he was 11th.
He was on the list.
Was he 11th?
Yeah,
I think Blake needs to take a. I think Blake needs to take a look at the list before.
I do. I'm gonna shut up now. I'm good.
So we'll quickly recap the top 50 for everyone watching, including Blake. So at number 50, out of Montreal, the offensive lineman Pierre-Olivier Lestage. 49 is Jamal Peters. David Beard at 48, which I think is ridiculously low for him. Arguably, probably one of the best offensive linemen over the last 10 years, but that's my own opinion. Deshaun Amos at 47, Drew Brown at 46, Niles Morgan at 45, CJ Rivas at 44, Jameer Thurman at 43, former BC Lion William Stanback at 42, Damon Webb at 41, and then Darnell Sankey at 40. The fact that Darnell Sankey, who is arguably the top inside linebacker in the league, is at 40 is wild.
Well,
Like, I think it's
kind
just
of
absurd.
to go off what you were saying a little bit, Shane, a little bit more, and like what I said about like Sanchez was kind of alluding to like the hype versus like these media members actually like paying attention to games and actually like paying attention to league-wide games, not just the game that they're covering. And a lot of these media members, if you do see them on the sideline that are working for TSN, a lot of them are not great at paying attention, other than maybe the Farhans, Ches, Milt. Like there was a lot of people that I thought got an opportunity to vote that were some question marks. Obviously, there was some probably well-deserved people that got their vote as well. And I know like there was another guy that was pretty boisterous about who he had on his ballot of Dustin Nielsen was kind of going about it on Twitter as well yesterday. But yeah, Shane, if you want to keep recapping the rest of the list, feel free.
And then you got Trey Ford at 39. Or this is from 39 to 20. Trey Ford, Martez Ivy, Logan Furland at 37. Logan Furland at 37. He was the runner-up for offensive lineman of the year.
No. He wasn't the runner-up. He was snubbed out of that award, like 100%.
Like the fact that he played every single position for Saskatchewan last year and he's 37 is nuts. Casey Sales out of Hamilton, Brandon Revenberg out of Hamilton, Mustafa Johnson, Montreal, Gary Peters, BC, Janorian Grant, Toronto, Matthew Betts, BC, Marc-Antoine Duquois, Montreal, Dalton Schoen at 29. I know there's some issues with his health with injuries, but I feel like at 29, that's a massive miss. Stanley Bryan at 28, Lorenzo Maldine at 27, Tyson Philpott at 26. The guy who finished like top 10 in
how I feel about that.
Like Tyson Philpott, the guy who finished like in top 10 for receiving yards, and he played like 7 games.
Yeah, he missed half the year.
Yeah. Reggie, he's behind Reggie Begelton, which makes no sense. Trevor Harris, Nick Anderson, Dejon Allen, Fullen, Aram. Well, I apologize. Always butcher your last name, so my bad. Oriam Mulligan out of Calgary, defensive lineman. I apologize.
Milade.
That's it. I apologize. Okay.
Good thing Blake's a play-by-play guy.
Exactly. And Tim White at 20. So that rounds out like 39 to 20.
I think Shane, if you look at a theme there with like people like again going back to like the people not really maybe watching the game or like going back and rewatching games, the back half of the list, 25 through 50, is all the positions that don't get a lot of pub. The offensive linemen, the defensive linemen, the linebackers, and some of the corners and safeties that were in there that on the TSN cut that they're probably watching at home, they don't see the production from the back seven, any of those corners, DBs. So of course they're going to be towards the back half. The offensive lineman that should be higher. To be honest, most people in the CFL don't really know how to evaluate the offensive lineman properly unless you're with teams. It's just way too hard to evaluate in terms of like even like myself, and I think Shane would probably speak to like just it's way too hard to see in their responsibilities of like knowing like kind of what a certain offensive lineman had. That being said, I still think that like as you said, with I think Revenberg was in like the 40s as well. Furland, some of those guys should be definitely a lot higher. But keep
Yeah,
recapping the
and I
rest of the
mean,
list.
again, like this is that again, it's all subjective, and everyone has their different opinions. But 19 to 10, you got Kadeem Carey, Justin Hardy, Eugene Lewis, Ryan Hunter, Darius Pickett, Kenny Lawler, Jake Seresna, Willie Jefferson, Chad Kelly, and Zach Kalaros.
Okay, so before we go into the top 10, unless I missed it, and that is quite possible, but your 19th overall player in the entire league does not have a team right now.
Yeah.
He was released after training camp.
Yeah.
Like, how does that make any sense?
I don't know, man. I feel like you should have probably taken him off the ballot and then just moved everyone up one at that point. But
Is this the top 10 now?
Yeah, we're heading into 9 to 1. Terrell Ford, who, according to some, he's a quarterback. Vernon Adams, Nathan Rourke, who apparently only got split up because Nathan Rourke got one first place vote. Justin McInnes at 6, which you have one really good year and you're number 6. That's wild. Winton McManus, Tyrese Beverett, Bo Levi Mitchell, Roland Milligan, and Brady Oliveira. I'm not even gonna lie. The top 5, I have no issue with, and you can put them in any order. To be fair, I don't.
Wait, can we recap the top 5 one more time? So Milligan, Oliveira was 1, Milligan was 2. Who was 3?
Bo Levi, Tyrese
Okay.
Beverett was 4, and then Winton McManus was 5.
I thought Bo was
I
kind of the
at
only
most,
like one that I was like surprised that he was that high. I wouldn't hate like he's a top. I thought he was a top 10 player last year for sure. But when I was like 3, holy smokes!
yeah, I was gonna say I would move Bo back 2 spots and the 2 defensive players up
I'd
a
have
spot
Bev
each.
as like
But
number 3 probably, and
yeah,
McManus is
Yeah, I
4.
mean, the problem, like, right when you look at Bo, he was MOP last season, right? And then you look at what he's done in his career,
I
MOP
just thought he threw a
runner up.
lot of interceptions.
or MOP,
Like
MOP runner up. My bad, MOP runner up. But like what he's done in his career, I can
Yes,
understand him
but
being in the top. I can understand him being in the top 5, and I can understand him being
see,
number 3. But I
yeah,
think
but the
that
top
those
goes back
50,
five
to
are interchangeable, in my opinion.
the
that goes
top
back to
50 is
criteria then for the list of like, is it based on resume and what you've done, or is it based on just last season?
I
yeah,
mean, if
which
it's
is what
based off last season, then there's a lot of then Nathan Rourke shouldn't be 7 at all, and Trey
Well,
Ford shouldn't
that's
even
what
be
I'm
on the
saying though.
top
Like
50.
it
Like,
changes with
I
criteria.
agree. But
which I don't think they have
that's
actually a set criteria. I think it's literally give me your top 50, who you think are the best 50 players.
Well, it actually isn't top 50. It's top 40. It's your top 40
Top 40,
players.
yeah.
Yeah,
And they
and
get ranked out of
they
50.
they have to give a certain amount of positions as well. I think it was Dustin Nielsen that tweeted the photo of I think it's like 4 D linemen, 3 linebackers, a couple defensive backs, and that's your kind of top 40, and then it turns into the top 50 list.
Yeah. But again, I don't know. I think the top 5 is probably the most accurate of the entire list. I think like Darius Pickett being 15, in my opinion, and again, this could literally just be some bias coming through, but you talk about Roland Milligan being impactful in every area of the game. Up until his injury, Darius Pickett was right there with him. Impactful on special teams, impactful on defense. I think he could make an argument that he probably should be a little bit higher. I don't like Rourke at 7. I think that's too
I think
high.
Rourke was just a sticky like convo because he only played 7 games. Like probably should have had the conversation and maybe not been eligible.
have to only play like 8 games, have to play a minimum of half the
Yeah, but
Well,
in
season, or
that
like
in that
even
case,
like if he started the year compared to like coming halfway through, it's just I don't know. It's like a gray area. I feel.
yeah, but in that case, then by that logic, Tyson Philpott isn't on the list either.
yeah.
Well, that's what I mean about criteria, though. They need to like
So,
disclose or they need to release like what they're doing it off. Because like if it's resume as well, that changes things. I feel like a lot.
No, I agree. Because like if it's like
If it's
last
and then
year,
if it's like a little bit of both, that's like probably the best case of like how you try to go about things.
yeah, which Bo Levi is a great example of that. Like part of last year, I would argue that last year for sure he was a top 5 player, and then over his career, he's been most likely a top 5 player.
Yeah.
But
and again, this is the point of the list, right? Get conversations,
Yeah. Exactly.
express disinterest, um, and
They did their
you
job.
know, yeah. Um, and I wish more people, like people who had votes on this, we had a full list. They just they just sent out like the CFL releases the list, releases the votes, releases who voted on what. Um, and I don't know if that's like CFL or the Writers Association or something like that, but like this is one thing I wish the CFL would do better at is like showing you how the voting has gone and who's voted for who and who got what
yeah,
votes. Because even though it's not perfect, it's better than being blind on like who's doing what and relying on like the people who voted to post out like half-ass tweets about who they picked. Uh, and it's just
I
like
feel like
okay,
I feel like the CFL like takes a few steps forward and then just fucking like 10 steps back all the time. Like with the CFL Plus and stuff, it's like they
oh
do
my god,
good at like
we
having a
don't have to
platform and
go
then
over that again.
it doesn't work. And then like when they do stuff like this, and I feel like they didn't advertise this really much at all. Like it just kind of
Yeah, I had no idea what's going on.
it kind of like appeared. I believe it was what Sunday or the day before. I saw a commercial on TSN when I was watching, and then I saw they posted on the Instagram channel as well. But like a week before, I would have been like, running commercials, trying to hype it up. I could have also just missed that as I'm not
no,
constantly
No,
on
it
it
TSN.
wasn't on TSN.
it was very like 3 or 4 days beforehand, and like there wasn't a lot.
No, because it's like top 50 should be one. It should be like kind of thought as like kind of the NFL's top 100. How that's built up with the NFL Network. They do it on multiple shows. They like release it. It gets really hyped up, and as like the CFL with like the slow periods in the off season, they should like want periods like that to like capture content for like people that create conversation like this, especially like before the season. This is like a perfect time to like hype everybody up, which they did. You could probably say of like Sunday going into the show day. When did it air again, Shane? Yesterday or Monday?
Yesterday,
Yesterday at 8.
Yesterday. Yeah,
so
so
5 our time.
not a bad job, I guess, per se, of like hyping it up the week of your season opening or your kind of week one. But I feel like they just could have done a better job of like they take 2 steps forward and then it's like 4 or 5 steps backwards of not capturing the full like capabilities of what you're trying to, I feel like, do.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you can't have it too late Eastern. You can't have it too early in the Pacific. But like the fact that they didn't even do like it was 30 minutes. There was no like
I know
graphics
you yeah, I know
when
you're
they were
pissed about that.
posting it. They were running by them like it went from like 50 to 31 in like 10
Yeah,
minutes.
they
Yeah,
Like
they do that
they
every
didn't like
year.
stop, yeah.
like it's just I don't know. I feel like you make it an hour, make it live, like actually do it live. Hell, even if you do it before the game, the first game of the season, and you do it like then the game's at 9:30. You're telling me you can't have like an hour and a half block where you
Here,
go through the top.
let's look
Stuart
right now
Johnson's the
what
commish.
TSN
You should be
has.
able to pull some strings.
Like I know they have a 30-minute pregame show. Like pregame starts at 9, kicks off at 9:30.
So
But
tomorrow,
like
before the on TSN 3, because the NBA finals start tomorrow, so that cuts into TSN just a little bit. So the game for starters is only on TSN 3 and TSN 5. but from 4:30 to 5:30 Pacific, they have the season preview, and then from 5:30 to 6, they have the CFL on TSN pregame, and then the game kicks off at 6 Pacific. So they've already booked a hour and a half off.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Like
you could have done it live, posted it, like go from like 8 o'clock Eastern, from 9 o'clock to like 9 o'clock Eastern. Do your hour like top 50, make it an actual show, make it an event, and then go into your pregame at 9 o'clock from 9 to 9:30.
I don't want to get you guys hyped up, but before we move on, I feel like also the CFL Plus thing is a little bit ridiculous 2 weeks in a row, especially when they
Yeah,
like are very frustrating of like half-assing CFL Plus and then scrambling to throw it on YouTube when genius, you can simulcast it on both. You could fucking play it on your CFL Plus stream and then simulcast it onto your YouTube, which they should have been doing from the first place because their site was too slow. It crashed when everybody came on. So it's like the like
We already
it's just
talked
like
but
about
super
this for half an hour last week,
the
Cole.
it's
the
frustrating, man.
website, the website in it, like in itself, is an absolute joke.
Yeah, it hasn't
Like
changed
I
either.
hate the CFL website. I hate it. The CFL website, the CFL Plus, all of it. I hate it. The way
I
their
don't mind the
stats work.
website, but CFL Plus sucks.
I hate the website layout. I hate how when you go to a year, when you're looking at like past years and you're on defense for 20, you go to like 2023, it refreshes the entire page and you have to go back to defense. It refreshes it back to quarterback. Like I hate a lot about what the CFL website is, um, because it's just not user friendly.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But
Like I don't care. I don't care. Just take a guide. Just copy and paste what the NHL does or the NFL does. Just copy one of their websites. It's not that hard. Like don't try to be different in that way. Just take what's working and do it. Don't try to make it own. Like don't try to force it to work. Just take it and go.
It is that hard apparently. But should we move on? Is Coach coming or what? 30
I don't
minutes late?
know.
What the hell? Is this
he
guy
said he
thinking
was.
who's he
He said
who's he
He's
thinking
practice
gonna
he
be
was
a
is?
going
couple of
late,
minutes
but
late.
like,
Fashionably late or what? What the heck is
I
this
mean,
guy
he is
doing?
a
well, he
rough.
said he
Like,
was at practice and it was running late. He just didn't say how late.
bro, is he on that Rough Rider time already? Showing up 30 minutes before, like after you're supposed to start, and trying to scam to
Yeah.
make a comeback.
All right,
It's
boys.
okay.
Should we
I
get
say we
on
move
what
on. Coach
what are
will
we
show
doing?
up or not.
Talking about week
I mean,
one?
if not, well, that's
Predictions?
unfortunate.
We'll just get his
Um,
picks later. It's not like he's
yeah,
good at them anyways.
exactly. So we'll just jump right into this week's games. We got the Ottawa Redblacks going to Saskatchewan to face the Rough Riders to kick off the season Thursday night at Mosaic. Friday night it's the Battle of Southern Ontario with Hamilton and going to never mind. I don't know why I said something. It's Montreal. It's Toronto going to Montreal. I'm like weeks ahead. My apologies. Toronto going to Montreal. Davis Alexander getting his first start as the official starting quarterback for the Alouettes. Nick Arbuckle is expected to start for Toronto with Chad Kelly hitting the game. I think it's a 1-game IL. I don't think they've put him on the 6. And then you have Hamilton going to Calgary for Bo Levi's second return to McMahon, and then ending it off with the puff of smoke in BC, with the Edmonton Elks going to BC Place, and hopefully they don't get smoked out of there. With
Right.
Snoop Dogg opening up festivities in BC. So let's start with
If they
Ottawa.
didn't cancel last week's games in Regina, they're not gonna cancel a game after a Snoop Dogg concert.
Is the concert inside or is it outside?
It's
It's
inside.
inside.
Okay,
Oh
that
yeah.
makes sense. Man,
Better
it's
have
gonna
the
be
roof
smoky
open
up in
tomorrow.
there. Hopefully. But yeah, let's start off with the first game, Saskatchewan and Ottawa. You got Drew Brown coming in his second year. Trevor Harris coming back from a leg injury again. Man, what are your thoughts going And where do you think these teams have? These teams went in, had a decent year last year, both out of the playoffs early. Um, don't tell me who you think is going to win. We have that later in the show. But just give me your thoughts on what to expect in this game, who you're excited to watch, who you're excited to see, and who you think is going to perform up to par or above par.
Yeah, I'll start. I think I'm excited for the game, first of all, just because it's the first game of the new season. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's the earliest the CFL has ever kicked off the regular season. I don't know. Like and Cole knows this already because we did it on our season look ahead slash schedule prediction, whatever. But like, I think that the Riders won the off season like by far. Oh, ho, ho.
Look who
Speaking of
decided to show
Saskatchewan.
up.
Perfect
Speaking of
timing.
Saskatchewan.
He heard Rough Riders and had to come running.
But I think the Riders won the offseason. I would predict, not the game, of course, but I predict at the end of the year they will finish first in the West. Ottawa, I'm not sure what to think about because they were a little bit quieter. I mean, it was February too, but like they were a little bit quieter in free agency. I didn't see a lot out of training camp just because of my schedule and whatever. I didn't see a lot of Shane's tweets and stuff like that. So I just don't know what to expect from Ottawa this year.
Yeah, before Coach gets in here, I'm really looking forward to this game as well. Like Blake, I have the Rough Riders finishing first in the West as well.
Yikes.
But I'm really looking forward to seeing them play, man. They have a lot of um fun, exciting players on their team, especially in the Canadian on the Canadian side of things. Their Canadian receiving core with Emulus, KSB, Del Duncan Bungsby could be another guy that's in that receiving core that could get some looks as well. Draft pick from last season. And then their defense and Coach Mace, man. Coach Mace is
Can y'all hear
really
me?
easy for. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you, Coach.
All right, sorry, it's buffering right now. No, I got bad Wi-Fi here at the school.
No worries, Coach. No worries. As I was saying, Coach Mace is an easy guy to root for. He's actually a Port Coquitlam guy, so he's a BC guy. Um, and the Ottawa side of things, pretty looking forward to seeing the next step from Drew Brown, another year under the regime. Um, and kind of how they're able to, I'm pretty high on them in the Eastern Division. I'm interested to hear how Shane thinks about them in terms of playoff seeding and where they stand. With Montreal, Toronto, the other good teams in the Eastern Division. And of course, it's just the first game of the year, so I think it's going to maybe be a little bit of slow on both sides, and then hopefully it's an exciting game to end. As I well know, never leave a CFL game too early because things might happen. Hopefully,
Wait,
we
you
get a
left the
late.
game early?
Yes.
Oh
Yes,
gosh,
you did. You've
Bro,
never heard that
what?
story? You've
the
never
Ottawa
heard
Red
that
Black,
No.
story?
The Ottawa
So,
Red Blacks.
No.
yeah, so Cole and I were at a game together, like not sitting together, but we went to the game together. The Lions were losing by like 10 points with
It,
three
it was
minutes
the it
left.
was the it was the two touch. It was when they were losing to Ottawa. I think by like two touchdowns, and Terry Williams had that missed field goal return for a touchdown. Shane, if you remember that game in
Yeah,
BC,
I remember that game.
Yeah.
and it was
Cole
like
left that game early. He was in the washroom and then like he left outside and he heard the winning touchdown.
I
Bro, the
I
first
definitely
rule of
heard.
CFL football is you don't leave games early.
Yeah, well, that's a learning experience that I went through. I was also probably a little bit more too intoxicated that game. As Blake said, I did go with him originally. Ended up meeting up with some buddies throughout the game. Ended up kind of getting not persuaded, but also like I was saying, having a few drinks. The fellows had a place nearby. We're like, man, let's get out of here. As we're going to the bathroom, like Blake was saying, I literally hear the crowd erupt, and I'm like, no, 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 we got to stay, boys. And they're like, no, 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 like that must have been Ottawa. That must have been Ottawa. So my dumb ass is like, okay, like let's keep walking. So we keep walking, and as Blake said, I'm hearing like another crowd eruption. So I'm like, what the? I'm like, what the hell is that? So, like I said, it's literally right up the street. It's near Five Guys. Shane, if you know where that is, it's like super close to the stadium. So
Okay.
walk to the house. We sit down. Offers us a drink. We obviously have a drink. We turn on the TV, and literally as we turn on the TV, TSN's playing, and it's like Terry Williams running for a touchdown, and the TSN people being like, "Oh, the largest or like the largest comeback in BC Lions history," or something like that. I'm like, no effing way we left this game, man.
Bro, first rule of CFL football: do not leave a game early.
Yeah, well,
Ever.
Like if
We
you
learned
go, you're there till the final whistle. You do not
we
leave a
learned
game
that the
early.
hard way, Shane.
Cole
Yeah,
knows
you
that
do.
I will never ever let him live that down.
Yeah,
You
you
live
shouldn't. That is like
you
amateur hour right there.
you live and you learn, boys. You live and you learn, I guess, you know?
Should have learned way before then. Should have been like it's like the golden rule. What are you teaching this man?
What? It wasn't me. He was into the CFL before I met him.
Yeah, it's all Blake's fault.
What? How?
It's okay, boys. I heard it. I heard the greatest comeback in CFL or in BC Lions
Could have
history in
watched you if you
franchise.
stayed in your seat.
I heard it. That's
To be
almost as
fair,
good. Almost as
why
good.
doesn't BC Plays have like TVs on the concourse
Well, they
They
do.
do, but they're very small.
Yeah.
and like very far apart? I feel like a
Yeah.
concourse that big, they'd be a little bit closer
Well,
together.
they're in certain like areas. They're kind of like in between the bathrooms. Like if the men and women's bathrooms are, they're like right in the middle. So
Yeah,
like
because like
if
when
you
I was
come out of
walking that concourse at Grey Cup to go grab a drink, and like there was nothing to watch TV. Like I'm like, what the hell?
well, if you come in a certain section, yeah, there's not a TV for. There could be a couple sections before there's a
That's
TV again for
wild.
sure.
Maybe I'm spoiled in Ottawa because at like Canadian Tire Center, there's TVs everywhere. Yeah, like you if you go on the concourse, you can watch the game from the concourse because there's TVs everywhere. Same at TD Place. You go on the concourse, there's TVs everywhere.
Well, you
So
don't
maybe I'm
need
just a little
TVs. You
spoiled.
sit in your seat.
You can't get there's no pop vendors anymore. It's all beer. It's all that fucking piss and that people drink that they go around and sell. Can't get
By
a
six,
can't get a Pepsi in your
28.
seat.
So.
So, but
I'm
that's
guessing
just my
coaches
opinion.
having technical difficulties, eh?
Yeah, just like the
Looks
Rough
like
Riders are gonna have tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
I think
gonna
we
shoot the
should
Rough Riders every time.
Oh,
think we
as
should move on to the next game, maybe.
Oh, I mean, I ain't even had my turn to speak.
Oh yeah. I guess you didn't go yet.
I know.
Yeah. Okay.
I know you don't. I know you don't like Ottawa, but like there are people who listen that do. Sorry, Blake.
Who?
Don't mean to rush.
Is it your fiance?
Yes, but there's others. Um,
oh, Shane Freeze.
Did we lose Shane too? Oh my gosh, we lost Shane
for a
too.
second.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no, now he's back.
But I'm excited to see Lewis. At least on the depth chart, and we'll see how it is come game time. But at least on the depth chart, it's Justin Hardy and Eugene Lewis versus Sales and Milligan, which I'm really excited to watch and really excited to see how that matchup comes up. Having Starkaza, Godber, and Palios all hurt, that defensive front for Saskatchewan is a little bit more terrifying now than it would have been, if those guys were healthy. But I don't know. I think this team, with Stanback and the pieces they've added, I think this is going to be a very good game. It's going to be a tight game. But I don't know. Even if Ottawa loses, I'm not going to be too upset. I'm not going to look too bad over in it. But I think Justin Fields is going to.
Did he just say Justin Fields?
He did. Like Justin Fields, the quarterback?
And he's going to bring what he did in Toronto into Ottawa, and it's going to suffocate them.
Yeah, for sure, Shane. I want to go back. I apologize if you did mention it, and I'm bringing it up again. But Keelan White was another guy that I'm looking forward to. He's obviously going to be starting in the Ottawa lineup. Another guy that I don't think will be it's probably more so for ratios. I think he's starting the game. Daniel Adeboboye, another Canadian running back. I would imagine just for ratio purposes, William Stamp will probably get the workload of the opportunities. But Daniel Adeboboye is a great backup option. Depth guy for the Argos the last few years behind Andrew Harris, obviously, and then AJ Ouellette before he went to Saskatchewan, kind of been biding his time. I think it's a
Yeah,
great
and Kennedy
opportunity
as
for him
well.
to go behind William Stanback and hopefully learn, and then hopefully one day kind of get his opportunity. So, as you said about the matchup with, your injuries to the offensive line, Sask has had their own injuries. I mean, Logan Ferland's
Oh my
back to
God.
playing all over the field, all over the
Yeah.
offensive line again. He's starting at tackle. He's over at guard. Now he's playing at center. So injuries on both sides, and that would probably be a little interesting, especially up front to both offensive lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think their injuries were more interior, and I think this might come off as in a wrong way, but managing interior offensive line injuries are a lot easier than losing your tackles, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a lot more help inside, so losing someone inside is a lot easier to cover up. I I don't know how Dartley is going to go up against like Carney um, and Co. In Saskatchewan. So like I much rather lose it sounds bad. I'd much rather lose a center or a guard over a tackle any day of the week because those tackle positions you're on an island. You don't have the support in the CFL as you would have in the NFL with your tight ends or your running backs. Like you don't have that same support. I feel much more confident if I'm Saskatchewan having lost my two starting interior linemen, and it sucks to say, but I feel more comfortable losing those two than I do losing my starting right tackle or starting left tackle any day of the week. Like even if you watch Saskatchewan last year, when Hardrick went down, that entire offensive line struggled because you were able to get pressure on that right side, and it just once you get pressure on the right side, the rest or like on the outside, the interior will crumble. If you can keep pressure out from the outside, that interior will continue to be strong. So I wasn't impressed with what I saw from Dartley against Montreal in the last preseason game. I'm hoping to see something better tomorrow, but with that defensive front, it's gonna be a tough challenge for them.
So Shane hates interior offensive linemen is what I'm getting.
I
I'm just
was an
kidding.
interior offensive lineman.
I'm
I
just
mean, to
kidding,
be
Jay.
fair, I
I
played
was gonna say,
everything, but
why is the quarterback talking about O linemen?
No, I love all
like
offensive
I
linemen.
mean,
I
I
was just
was
bugging
guard.
you.
I was right guard and center, and then I would play tackles. But like, then you should know exactly what I'm talking about. That if you're a quarterback, having pressure on the outside is so much harder to deal with than pressure on
I,
the
I
inside.
would I would argue the opposite, Shane. I would argue that the interior pressure when it can get to you is quicker. Like when you can collapse a pocket from the inside opposed to outside. I agree with you that losing a tackle is much harder than the interior. I was just kind of bugging you there. But I would argue that I think in up the middle pressure as a quarterback, because from the outside, you can kind of manipulate getting up into the pocket, right? Using your slide up into the pocket. In the interior, you're kind of having to flush away from obviously your offensive line and having to kind of play at the mercy of the rush. So I would argue that, but I would agree with you that I think losing a tackle is much harder to deal with than losing any of the interior linemen.
Yeah, because I mean, it's usually 3-on-2 when you're inside,
For sure.
right?
There's
If you're
like you said,
the
you can hide
matchups
them
are more
more. You can
favorable.
hide them. You can
But
hide them
yes,
much
I
easier.
agree. If you get inside pressure as a quarterback, it's harder to deal with because
It,
it's usually right
it's
in
just
front of
it's
you.
just it's just rare too, like because like what we were saying, like with the matchup, you're not going to get a lot of that interior pressure. So a lot of the time when it's one on one outside, as you're saying, that's why it's harder to lose a tackle. Um, that edge pressure can come, but when the guys are more often than like the one defensive tackle is getting a 2-on-1, he's probably not going to collapse the pocket as fast. That's why I think guys like in the NFL, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, those guys are super valuable because they're like very rare. They can collapse the pocket from the interior, and it can really fluster quarterback, especially uh, like uh, like I don't know if you like kind of understand this feeling, Shane. Like as a quarterback, when you do your 3-step drop, 5-step drop, of like when guys are even around your feet, that's like an uncomfortable feeling of like even like around your feet, not even in like kind of falling towards you, just kind of like in the vicinity. It can kind of like be a little bit of like you can just that split second of like not being focused can cause like incompletion, high ball, whatever it may be. So that's why I think guys that are in the interior are very very quietly very valuable because they don't really show up on the stat sheet, and it's unfortunate, but guys that do have that interior pressure are super super important.
And I mean, side note, just on the topic, uh, as an interior offensive lineman, you are stepping over feet all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like having your spacing inside is so important for offensive linemen that like if you step on your teammate's foot, one, you could seriously injure them, and two, you can get bulldozed because you're off balance. So it's interesting to see how people play inside and how little respect the like interior, like especially one techs on the defensive side. And I think this is why guys like Mike Rose or Michael Wakefield are so important to to teams, because as they usually play the one tech spot, they are so valuable because if they can split, because they're the ones who usually get double teamed, they usually face the most amount of double teams because they're right between the center and guard. If those guys can get pressured, you're golden. If you're getting production, if you're getting sacks out of those types of players, you are winning. And I think, to kind of go off topic, I think that might have been the problem with Christian Covington last year because he played a lot of one tech, at least from the games I watched. He was playing a lot of one tech and he wasn't able to split those double teams, which made him a little bit more noticeable because he wasn't producing the way you would think someone who played 7-8 years in the NFL would have produced at a CFL level.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, going back on track.
Should we get on to Friday Night Football?
Yeah, let's go into Friday night. The Nick Arbuckle-led Toronto Argonauts are heading into Percival Molson Stadium to face off against the Davis Alexander-led Montreal Alouettes. Both teams are relatively healthy for the most part. This game I think, is a toss-up. Can go either way.
Yeah, I would. Go ahead, Cole.
Blake. Okay.
No.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I'm really looking forward to this game because I really like Montreal, number one. Obviously, all three of us are big Tyson Philpott fans, so seeing him back again, he kind of, set the stage for last season in week number one, going off early. So really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do this season, along with Davis Alexander, who I don't know if I've told you guys yet, but is my MLP pick for this season, although definitely gave me a little bit cause for concern after his preseason performances of maybe wanting to look for some other candidates. But that being said, just kind of not really seeing any candidates that really jump out to me in terms of a favorite. I thought I'd go with, I think, the best team. And unfortunately, boys, I know we had this argument last season of it being a quarterback award, kind of the just favoritism, whatever you want to call it, bias towards the award of going to, usually the best team's quarterback. I kind of went with Davis Alexander, who I think will be a media favorite with him being, the new quarterback in the CFL that could, I think, have some success, especially if they're able to win a lot of games with the team. I think he's set up as well with the best situation as quarterback. So looking forward to Montreal and seeing them play. But I would say opposite, that I'm probably, compared to, I think, a lot of the general CFL fan base and even just population, I'm probably down on Toronto compared to a lot of people. So I'm interested to see what they look like, if I'm going to look like an idiot come the end of the year, if I'm going to be proven right. It's no really slight at Spencer Dinwiddie, or excuse me, Ryan Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie is an NBA player. Coach Dinwiddie,
Yes, he is.
Of what he's built there. I really think that he is a good coach in the CFL, one of the better ones. Arguably, I think top three with Mike O'Shea, and a few, maybe looking at maybe Jason Moss, Corey Mace. I think his name's in that conversation. I really just think they're not going to be able to reload like we saw them last year. And I know a lot of Argos fans are kind of using that to their, rightfully so, like motivating and keeping the receipts of a lot of people thinking that they're going to fall off once again. I'm one of those people, and I'm really interested to see, like, I'm intrigued to see them, right? Because I think they did lose a lot of bodies on defense, but they remained really strong in the offensive line, and that's why they made the run they were able to. Can they kind of transition that defensive line on the fly? That's where I have my question marks. Obviously, arguably probably the best, like I said, arguably the best linebacker duo in Cam Judge, Wynton McManus in Toronto as well. Cutting Kadeem Carey is obviously an interesting one that got a lot of people talking about. I know they're high on the guy that they have in there right now. That the name escapes me off the top of my head, but I also kind of have questions on, like, I know Devontae Coxie is a good receiver and stuff like that, but like their weapons long term, and I think, rightfully so, they are the reigning undisputed heavyweight champions of the world. still, but as soon as things kicked off, it's back to 2025. It's fair game and everyone's fighting for the Grey Cup championship. So I'm really interested for this one. Like I was saying about it first of like Friday Night Football. It's usually one of my favorites. It's one of my memories as a kid of always watching Friday Night Football. So this one specifically, I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I
Shane, go
mean,
ahead so we don't forget you this time.
I just want to add, like, I should have mentioned it for the last game. Ottawa comes into Saskatchewan as plus 140 underdogs on FanDuel. This game is actually not as close per betting odds. The Argonauts are plus 180 underdogs
Wow.
going into Montreal. Montreal's minus, and it's not even close. Minus 220 favorites right now and I mean, obviously there's no depth charts. We won't see the depth charts tomorrow, so these lines may change once the depth charts are released. But heading into game one, as of right now, the Red Blacks or the Argonauts are plus 180. They have the second worst odds this week to win. So clearly the odds makers don't see this as a close game. The spread though is only 4.5. So clearly they think it's somewhat of a close game, but they think Montreal should win this easily, I guess. I don't know. That's a weird line combination. Having a spread at 4.5 in the underdog.
Easy-ish.
Well, it's weird because generally when you have a plus 180, you would think the spread would be like 7.5 or 8,
Yeah.
not 4.5. Like that's a big discrepancy, like this disparity between minus 220 plus 180 and the spread is only 4.5. Like that's just so they think it's going to be a close game, but they think Montreal should be the favorite to win it.
Maybe they're just confident in Montreal winning it, even if it's a close game, I guess.
I guess because I don't know. I've seen some pretty weird ones, but this is one of the weirder spreads that I like. One of the weirder ones that I've seen in the CFL over the last like 2-3 years. But no, I think this is gonna be an interesting game. I think all the pressure, and this might sound bad, is on Davis Alexander.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They've picked him. They've picked him over Cody, who won a Grey Cup for Montreal. He needs to go out there and perform. There is no break-in period. He has to go out there, sling the ball, get a win. If he throws for under 250 yards and has a negative touchdown interception ratio, and they lose by a touchdown or two, I think there's already gonna be comments and questions around, do they go to McLeod Bethel Thompson? Like I think from a media perspective and like a fan perspective, I think there's gonna be a short leash. Because the way this entire situation unraveled. I think for him, he needs to go out and perform. He needs to go to ball out. He needs to put up a win. He needs to start. I think Montreal needs to go 3-0 and 4-0, and he at least needs to produce, or people are going to start kind of pulling at that leash a little bit. I think Toronto's just playing with house money, right? If you can, again, this is the same thing last year. If you can survive Chad Kelly being gone for however long he's gone, once he's back, you're giving your chance you're giving your chance a chance to win and be in that competition once he's back. Like Kelly makes that big of a difference. If Toronto can, if he's out 3-4 weeks and Toronto can go 2-2 or 3-1, they put themselves in a very good spot for the rest of the year. I think all the pressure's on Montreal to win this game. I think if Toronto loses, they're gonna be like, well, you have Nick Arbuckle, like they're missing Chad Kelly. They kind of expected that they lose. I think all the pressure's on Montreal to go out and not just win, but to put up points. Winning at 21-17 isn't gonna calm anyone's nerves or expectations.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
I would wonder because listening a little bit of Cliffy in them, I would kind of push back on in terms of the fan base, I think, freaking out right away. Now, obviously, that's coming from two people's perspective when talking about Cliffy and Tim, when they talk about, their belief in Davis Alexander, even getting back to him backing up Cody last season. I know they talked about on the podcast quite a bit of the future is Davis Alexander and stuff like that. And I would think even if he does struggle in week one or say the first month of the season, I would think they probably don't freak out. Now, I agree. He definitely needs to put up production because, like you said, they pretty much gave Cody the boot after he won them a Grey Cup. Not obviously individually, but when you lead him to a Grey Cup I feel like that probably should have gave him a little bit more of a leash compared to Davis Alexander, who's really unproven as a quarterback. But for whatever reason, like there's kind of been that conversation. Like I know Farhan was the guy that was very voicious of him early on in the offseason, like being high on him when we really didn't see much. Like I know we saw him in whatever the amount of games he played for Montreal last season, but like I don't know. I thought it was a small sample size to like kind of dub this guy the franchise right away. So I agree with you that I think he needs to put up production, but I really think that like that fan base has kind of fallen in love with him in terms of like being the future.
Sure, but
I can't hear Shane.
You froze again. That's okay. I'll talk then. No, like I'm looking forward to this game because I think that I think these are the top two teams. I mean, I already talked when we talked about the Saskatchewan Ottawa game that I don't really know what Ottawa is. I don't have trust in Hamilton. So I think these are by far the top two teams in the Eastern Division. And I know it's week 1, but when you get to week 21, like the end of the season, like these tiebreaker games matter. Like I don't know, Shane, you might know. I don't know if you have the schedule up in front of you, but I don't know if the Argos and Alouettes played twice or 3 times this year. But if it's just twice, these games matter that much more. And the fact that it's in Montreal, they were the ones that, of course, lost to the Argos. Like it's been 3 years in a row where the visiting or they played each other in the East Final. The home team has only won one of those, and that was the Argos in 2023. The road team won both games in the last 2 playoffs. The Alouettes and or pardon me, the Argos in 2022, the Alouettes in 23, the Argos in 24. So the Alouettes starting at home, I think they want a bit of revenge on the Argos. Obviously, the stakes aren't as high in week number 1 as they would be in, let's say, an Eastern final. But Davis Alexander, like you guys both said, he's basically been given the keys to the city per se, and he has to prove like there a lot of people are predicting that the Alouettes will be one of, if not the best teams in the East, and a team competing for the Grey Cup this year. And if they have a slow start, that kind of goes out the window. I just contradicted myself a little bit by saying I don't know what Ottawa is. I don't have a lot of faith in Hamilton, but still, there's also a crossover possibility. Let's not forget that we think that Edmonton will be improved. I think Calgary's a wild card. Winnipeg might take a step back, but at the same time, it's Winnipeg and BC and then Saskatchewan. So really, you need these wins early in the year. And it's the old saying, a win in week 1 is just as good as it is in week 20 or week 21.
yeah,
All
and I
right.
mean, again, I think if they play 3 times, but 2 times in Montreal, right? So you ideally want to go 2-1. If you go 2-1 against them, you have the tiebreaker, and you want to win those 2 games.
What weeks do they play, Shane?
So they play week 1, week 7, and week 16. So they have, early in the year, they have 2 matchups in the first, 7
2
weeks.
months of the season. Yeah.
And then they don't play again until the back half. So, if you're Montreal, you have them at home twice in the first, your first, I think, 3 home games. 2 of them are against Toronto. And you have basically all, yeah, I mean, in your first 6 games, 4 of them are East Division opponents. So, if you're Montreal going, being on a losing record after week 7, you have BC and Edmonton as your two West games, right? If you lose 2 out of your 4 East games, and 2 of them are against Toronto, you're setting up that back half of the year to be very troublesome, especially since you don't play Ottawa again until the last 2 weeks or twice in the last 3 weeks of the season. So I don't know. I think for Montreal, getting off to a good start is just as important. Like, is more important than any other team in the East. But we'll see. I mean, they're clearly the runaway favorites to win. But let's get into the Saturday games.
Saturday games.
We got the Hamilton Tiger Cats going to the Calgary Stampeders. Hamilton enters at a minus 134 underdog, while Calgary is only a 112 favorite. The spread is set up as minus 1.5. So this game is the definition of a toss-up, as much as you can get in the CFL at a 1.5 spread. And those lines are pretty close to each other. Could go either way. I don't know. I want to see if Kenny Lawler in a Ticats uniform and see if Bo can recreate what he did last year. But I think I think I can speak for everyone where all eyes are on that defense.
Yep.
Like all eyes are going to be on what that defense can do. And I don't think it's even close. Like storylines on offense, great. Can that defense stop people from throwing them out of the building?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. Like I've already said a few times that like I don't have faith in Hamilton. Like I don't have faith in really either of these teams, but I have a little bit more faith in Calgary just because of the VA factor. Like I think VA can kind of bring that team together, whereas not that Bo Levi can't or that he hasn't in his career. But we saw this story play out last year. Like we already talked about it earlier in the show, that Bo Levi was the most outstanding player runner up, and it didn't matter. They didn't even make the playoffs. They started the year like, well, yeah, but they started the year 1-8, and then tried to win their way into the playoffs, and it wasn't enough to get in the end, because the defense finally started playing better in the second half of the year, but by then it was too little, too late. And Hamilton just couldn't claw their way back.
Yeah, and again, like they had some time. Like they came close twice. There were some really close games against Ottawa that, if those scores flip, Ottawa misses the playoffs again, and Hamilton squeaks in, and that probably is the difference maker from MOP between Oliveira winning it and Bo Levi winning it. But I agree, like the defense is arguably is Stubblefield and Peters and Amos, are those guys going to be the difference maker? Are those front seven are they going to give a chance where you don't have to score 35 plus points every game to win? Like at the end of the day, that's what they need to do. They need to let their offense produce, which they should, but their offense shouldn't be responsible for scoring 35 plus points every game. That's just not a realistic way to win in this league.
I thought I saw that Stubblefield still was a DNP the first day of practice too. So has he been? Did you
I
just bring it up?
seen it, but my understanding is that he was cleared and he was ready to go for week 1.
Okay, well, I thought I saw it, so maybe it could be just like a precaution because it is still early in the week technically for Saturday games. I would imagine they'll practice tomorrow and Friday.
No, because the Lions had day 2 practice today. They'll have tomorrow, and then Friday will be a walkthrough.
Yeah, I think with BC or with Hamilton, they might have just been because if you don't suit up, you have to go as a DNP, right? So if they're taking it easy and just letting him kind of bring it back in, he might just be as a DNP because of the leg injury, but he could be cleared to play.
Yeah, that's just another one to keep an eye on. Another one to keep an eye on is obviously number 2, overall pick, and Devin Verisak, if he's going to be on the field relatively quick. Obviously, I know they kind of want to in terms of that defense, in terms of what that linebacker position looks like. He obviously made some plays in preseason, but more predominantly on special teams, which I think was what was kind of talked about. It was he's pro-ready special teamer, but I don't know if he was pro-ready as like a starting middle linebacker or starting will backer. So I'm curious to see if he gets on the field and has to be playing earlier than maybe expected.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he showed that he can do it, so we'll see what happens with that. But I don't know. I think, again, this is this toss-up, right? Both teams missed the playoffs. Calgary had an atrocious season. VA makes his first start as a Stampeder. There's a lot of storylines in terms of each individual team. There's going to be a lot of eyes on how this team or how both teams are going to play this year. I think both coaches are on the hot seat. I think Dickinson and Milanovic are going to be on the hot seat this year, and if they both come off to a slow start, there should be conversations around them staying in their current teams. But I don't know. I think
The only
this
reason
game is probably gonna be the worst game of the week. I'm gonna be very honest. I think this game is gonna be the worst game of the week. And we look at it and we're like, this is gonna be a slaughter fest. It's gonna be back and forth. Both defenses are questionable. Both offenses are high powered.
That's why I think it might be fun, Shane. I think it's just going to
Yeah,
be
it's
high
gonna-
scoring.
it'll
No,
be like-
no defenses are going
it's gonna be
stop
fun to watch
anything.
if you like an offensive game, but like it's gonna be bad to watch. Like realistically,
it'll be like last year's week 1 matchup between the teams.
yeah, it just because you're gonna have like, you're gonna look at it and be like, why are you like, what is going on? Like it's just gonna be, and I don't even want to like, you know, I think Monson, former Calgary DC, is now in Hamilton making his return. Like I don't know if it's gonna be that bad, but like I have very little faith in this game actually being entertaining from a non. If you love offense, this game will probably be your cup of tea. But if you actually want quality football, you're not going to get it in this game, in my opinion.
Pinkies up.
You're going to watch it and you're going to be like, man, this is just bad football. Like, it's good offensive scoring and like, cool. You guys are getting.
That's why I'm not watching it.
Like, you're just going to look at it and you're going to be like, man, it's going to be bad fundamental, bad foundational football. Like, that's just my opinion on it. Like, there's not much else to say.
Blake, well, I'll be at backyard party. Blake, are you going to be at backyard party?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll be
maybe not as early as you, but I'll be there.
Or I'll be finishing work because the game starts at 7:00.
Yeah. So.
Anyways,
I guess that leaves us with one game to talk about before we do our picks.
Yeah, the smoke out. Good. Make sure you bring a fan. That's for sure. Hopefully, the ventilation at BC places has been upgraded.
I promise it is not. But.
The revamped, highly paid off Edmonton Elks come into BC Place and get introduced to Snoop Dogg for before the game. I have a question. Were any of the players out for 50 Cent last year?
Yeah, Sean White was out.
Of course he was.
Most of the coaches were out too.
Yeah, there was a couple. I think like Justin McInnes was out.
The Lions locker room has like a little back door you can get onto the field, so you don't have to come through the tunnel as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a few. VA I think was out for a little bit and then he went back in. But
yeah, I don't know. I expect there to be a lot of quite a bit of players on the field for this concert.
But yeah, like in regards to the game, like I think the biggest question, and everybody knows that if you've watched this show for a while, like when it was on the CFF page, and of course transitioning to 13th man, but like kind of the homerism that Cole and I have, and what like our feelings on the BC Lions, but like I think the biggest storyline of this game is not with the BC Lions, actually, shockingly. It's like, can the Edmonton Elks finally get over the hump? Because like a lot of people in and around the CFL would argue that, contrary to what I believe, that the Elks won the offseason over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. But it's like, how many years can you win the offseason? Like before eventually it has to translate to results on the field. And so far, like it hasn't translated to results on the field. Like they haven't made the playoffs since I believe it was before COVID. I want to say 2019.
Yeah, it was 2019.
Yeah. So 2019 was the last time they made the playoffs. Like they keep winning the offseason, but it hasn't amounted to anything. Like last year they were better, but better by their standards was still on a 7-11 record, 4th in the West and out of the playoffs. Like all they could hang their hat on last year was sweeping the Stampeders.
I will say, disclaimer: Blake just hates Edmonton. For anyone
I don't.
He just Edmonton and Winnipeg are always on his shit list. Cole is the resident. He is the designated Edmonton lover. He pumps their tires every chance he gets. And does. Blake he comes around and just punctures them every. Nope, not today.
Boys, surprisingly, I have the Elks on board.
If you're
I'm not as high on them. Well, I am high, but I'm not as high on them as usual.
If you're new here, just buckle in for all the Winnipeg hate you'll get.
Wait till next week when Winnipeg hits the field against the BC Lions, and you will understand the true definition of hate towards a team in this league, because we will spend 15 minutes of just Blake ripping on Hamilton, talking about how Calero's getting suspended and they're
but that's
overrated
deserved.
and
Like,
they're
Strebler can't
trash. And
throw a pass longer than 15 yards.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I'm just saying, like, wait till next week, and we're gonna spend 15 minutes of just Blake crapping on the Blue Bombers over everything they do. So that's
because they suck.
They suck, but they've been to the Grey Cup 5 times in a row, and they're going for their like 5th West Division title, regular season title.
It'd be 6th.
It would. Yeah, I was gonna say it would be their 6th in a row. Yeah.
So you know.
But go ahead, Cole.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game too. Like Blake was saying, for Edmonton purposes of like wanting to see if they're going to be good or not this year. I'm really intrigued to see whether or not the Edmonton Elks are still the Edmonton Elks, and they just literally find the most random Elk way to lose games as possible. And if that is true in the first month of the season, I think the Elks are just the Elks. And for whatever reason, they have bad juju, whether you think it's the name, whatever it may be. That team is just cursed because of the amount of ways I've seen that team lose in the last 3 to 4 years is unbelievable, of fumbling victories that should have been had, fumbling like fundamental clock management issues of like not knowing how to, kick off properly, not knowing how to cover kicks, gagging all over themselves multiple times in late game situations. As Blake said, 7-11 last season, 4th in the East Division. I think that they are good for two or 1 or 2 wins more this season than they were last
500.
season.
Wow. What an accomplishment.
Yes. Which I think is a good step though for the Elks in getting maybe not a winning season by CFL standards, because the CFL is a little bit with the 18 games, obviously. A positive, I think, for the Elks of this new regime with Mark Killam of, as Shane was talking about with Calgary and Hamilton, both those coaches being on the hot seat. This is year number 1 of the regime with Ed Harvey obviously coming over, Chris Morris being in charge of the, president of football operations. So I think taking the right step this year is super important for them. I think the biggest question for them is Trey Ford the guy? I think he would probably have the shorter leash than a guy like Davis Alexander when it comes to a guy like Cody Fajardo, who's behind him. I think Edmonton would be smart to have a quick pull of Trey Ford if he isn't, having success in the first month of the season, just because, unfortunately, we've seen this story before. I think it's time now for Trey to kind of nut up or shut up, and it's kind of time for him to grab the bull by the horns and take this starting job for real, because whether, for right or wrong, if you want to say it, he did realistically get beaten out by, Taylor Cornelius, MBT the last few years. So whether he got the opportunities and lost it after getting injured and stuff like that, I think it's kind of this is the year for him to take advantage. Like I said, I think this is a positive year for the Elks, maybe not by Blake's standards necessarily. But then when it comes to BC side of things, obviously I'm super excited to see how they perform on the field. There's multiple storylines when it comes to the BC Lions, new head coach, Nathan Rourke, Matthew Betts, Justin McInnes, you could even talk about. Tons. So I'm really looking forward to this one, but maybe we get into our picks and we can talk about them all again here quickly.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, I think Edmonton is the biggest storyline this week. Trey Ford is the biggest storyline this year, followed by Nathan Rourke. I think those two guys, unfortunately, part of it's because they're Canadian, but I think with Trey Ford, it's just, it's your 4th year in the league. It's time to put up or shut up. You've been given the keys. You signed a 3-year extension to be the starter in Edmonton. It's time to put your foot down and run with it. And obviously with Rourke, it's so he can get back to 2020 as close to 2022 form as possible. Right? I don't think anyone expects him to kind of recreate 2022. But if he's slightly below it, I think that's a win for BC. So that's my opinion. I think the quarterbacks will drive both of these teams. I think if both these teams are going to live and die with their quarterback. And
I would agree.
And if both of them play really well, they're going to have good years. If not, both teams are in for a long season.
Darn it.
But yeah, we'll jump into our picks. I will say, just since I forgot to mention at the top, Edmonton is plus 210. BC enters at minus 260. The spread's set at 5.5 points. So again, kind of a close game, but pretty confident that BC will walk away with the win on Saturday night to end week 1. And yeah, we'll jump right into our Royal Retros game day pick'em. We'll start off with game 1, Saskatchewan, Ottawa. I 100% expect. I think I know where both of you guys are going. I know obviously where Coach Phil is going. I don't even need to ask him. But who are you guys going with this week, and why? Quickly.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Red Bull. No, I'm just kidding. I am not going with the Red Blacks. I am going with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. For all the reasons we talked about when we talked about the game, that I really don't know what the Red Blacks are. It's only week 1, so Trevor Harris isn't hurt yet, nor is AJ Ouellette. So the Riders are gonna have their full complement of starters. And for that reason alone, I think the Riders give the fans what they want, which is a home opener win, and start what will be a very good year for them. Maybe not a Grey Cup year, but a very good year for them, 1-0.
Cole?
Yeah. I too have the Riders, which is no slight at the Ottawa Red Blacks this year. I think, pretty high on them. I would, I think I have an idea of kind of what we're going to see from the Ottawa Red Blacks this year of being pretty good on offense, especially with the addition of William Stanback. I think Drew Brown's just going to take another step as a franchise quarterback and a starter of a team, as well as that receiving core. Obviously, Nick Marner going down, but I think Keelan White, obviously, all of us are, fans of Keelan and probably pretty high on him, thinking that he's going to be able to maybe not pick up where Nick Marner left off, because I thought he was kind of starting to look better towards the end of last season and then starting to build momentum into the offseason. So we'll see, because obviously Keelan still has to prove himself as, a professional. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But the defense is probably something that, can they take another step? Can they be a little bit better in maybe helping them close out some games, get some meaningful stops for them? Is probably the most important thing, as well as, the offensive line as well. Obviously, with probably any of the teams that we're going to talk about, it just, as I said, it was last year, why I thought Toronto was good. They're the best, I think, in terms of being built in the trenches. So I'm going to go with Saskatchewan. I think Saskatchewan is arguably the best team on paper in the entire CFL. And I think they are going to rightfully kind of take their place in the West Division this year. I think last year was a step in the right direction for Corey Mace leading that franchise. They'll take another one, the next step, I guess you could say, of winning the Western Division, getting to a Grey Cup potentially. And I just think they're really well built, where it matters. Defensively, they're going to want to, I would think, kind of try to run the ball and kind of rejuvenate whatever they can out of AJ Ouellette. Obviously, dealing with the injuries in the offensive line is not ideal, and we've seen that kind of hurt them in the last few years. But unlike, I know Shane is not very high on, I think, a guy like Trevor Harris, who's, I know, getting older. I think he also just keeps them. He's kind of a game manager, right? He's not going to really put the ball in harm's way a lot of the times. He gets out to a lot of the time his first read, kind of keeps them ahead of the chains. While also, I guess, not really risking the ball. That kind of hurts them as well, not being able to maybe create some big plays, especially with some of their weapons that they have offensively. But I just think Saskatchewan will be able to capitalize on, being at home, the season opener, the energy behind that. And I think Corey Mace will have them ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Ottawa. I think Ottawa has a lot to prove. The offense, on paper, is probably their best offense since 2015. There is question marks within that secondary, but that front seven is, when healthy, probably the best front seven in the league. And if they can get to the quarterback quickly, secondary only needs to do their job for 5 to 10 seconds. So against a banged up offensive line, I think Ottawa can take this. I think it's going to be a close game, but I have Ottawa walking away with the dub to start the year. It's Friday night, Toronto in Montreal. Cole, you want to go first?
Yeah. I'm going to go with Montreal, as I believe is it they're minus 280 or whatever, but the point spread has them closer. But I believe that they're going to win. I believe that they're rightfully the favorite. They were the best team, I think, going into basically week 14, 15 last year of carrying their win streak over from the previous year. They didn't fulfill their, maybe their hopes of going off to, win back-to-back Grey Cups, and kind of fell off towards the back half of the year. Now, you could also probably, some of the injuries, as we talked about with Tyson, Cody kind of coming in and out of the lineup, trying to fight back, you know, dealing with some injuries that probably maybe he shouldn't have been in some games. And Toronto obviously knocked them off. So I'm pretty high on Montreal still. I don't think, as Shane said, I think arguably, he said arguably Ottawa's front seven is, the best when healthy. I think Montreal is kind of probably number one when it comes to, defensive line, linebackers, as a, 7 guys that are really, really difficult to deal with on a weekly basis. And I think that's going to help them, win the East this year.
Cole? Or Blake? Wow.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I'm gonna go with the Alouettes as well. Like, I just think that this game is more of a toss-up for me. But even though he's unproven, he technically won the Grey Cup. I'm a MVP last year in Nick Arbuckle, which was like
A joke.
whatever.
A
Yeah,
joke.
Should have been
yeah,
McManus.
it was.
Should have
We
been
don't have to
McManus.
rehash that. We talked
Arguably
about
should have been
that
Willie
enough.
Jefferson.
We
That
talked
too,
about
but
that
you're
enough.
not going to give it to a loser, unfortunately.
We talked about that enough to close out last year. But like Nick Arbuckle there's a reason he's kind of bounced around the league and whatever. He did enough to win the East Final. He did enough to win the Grey Cup. But I trust Davis Alexander a little bit more than I trust Nick Arbuckle. And when the game comes down to it's close, who has the better QB? I think Montreal has the better QB in this game. Therefore, they're going to win it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. So right now, the only difference is me taking the Rough Riders, everyone else, or me taking the Red Blacks, everyone else taking the Rough Riders. I don't even need to ask Coach Phil about that. He's going to ride with Uncle Jake, even if he's the backup.
Uncle Trevor.
Yeah.
Cousin.
Uncle Trevor, cousin Jake.
Yeah, Uncle Trevor, cousin Jake. So Friday or first game on Saturday, Ticats versus Stampeders.
I got Calgary. I'm excited to see VA sling it for Calgary, man, this year. I can tell you that. I think unfortunately that maybe his defense will probably maybe let him down too often this upcoming season. I still have a lot of question marks about that side of the ball, but I am definitely, being a quarterback, a fan of offensive football. So I think this is going to be one where they sling it around. Especially, we saw Boleva Mitchell go over 5,000 yards passing last season. The addition of Kenny Lawler, they tried to feature him early in their preseason game. They were targeting him early. So I would think that they're going to want to try to get their target acclimated very fast. When you look at the rest of their receiving core, they have a lot of weapons with obviously Tim White, Keandre Smith, Canadian. So I think they're going to really want to throw it all over the yard. You look at Calgary's receivers is I was talking to Mark Steven, like it's a darn basketball team with the size that they have with Begelton and Rhymes, and obviously they're hoping that Barnes and Philpott are going to be able to stay healthy and take that next step. I think when healthy, those two are going to be able to be pretty big threats for their offense. And yeah, I'm interested to see this one. I think it's going to be a shootout. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll probably catch a lot of this game, so I'll probably see a lot of the highlights, and I'm hoping I'm seeing a lot of Jalen Philpott and a lot of receiving touchdowns being scored.
Blake?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Stampeders as well. Like, I think like we already talked about, it's like Bo Levi Mitchell's gonna put up points. Like, it doesn't matter what game he plays in. Is this defense gonna do enough for the Tiger Cats to win? And this week specifically, I don't think they will. Like, I think Calgary's offense is much, much improved. Having, as much as coach would probably disagree, having Vernon Adams behind center over cousin Jake. And the Stampeders won last year with cousin Jake as their starting quarterback. That only gives me more faith in the Stampeders that they will go 2-0 in back-to-back week number ones, and start the year 1-0 once again.
Yeah, so I guess this is our second change of the week so far. I'm going with Hamilton. I think Hamilton's defense is better than Calgary's right now. I think Monson will have this team playing better earlier, and I think Deshaun Amos addition should not be overlooked. The secondary looks better on paper at least than it did last year. So I think Hamilton could come out as long as that offense is clicking and they have weapons. I think it's going to be a close one, but I have Hamilton walking away with a dub this week. And that means we ends off. And I know who you guys are going to go with.
I was gonna say, Shane, just go first because you already know.
I'm gonna go first on here because I know exactly where you guys are gonna go. You're both going to Edmonton, but no, I'm going Edmonton. I think there's too many gaps in my opinion on BC side, especially defensively. I think there's still some gaps that team struggled to stop the run last year. It allowed them to be exploited everywhere else. The injuries on the offensive line are concerning. Can't ignore those. That defensive front in Edmonton on paper looks menacing. So can they give Nathan Rourke enough time to find the open receivers? I think again this is gonna be a close game. I think this is gonna be a one-score game, but I have Edmonton outlasting BC. I think their defense is going to make a play. I think that's going to be the difference. Is Edmonton's defense is going to step up. They're going to make a play, and they're going to be the reason why they walk away. I think again, this is going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be under 7, but I think it's going to be Edmonton's defense that makes the difference. I think they win off of like a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown, or even just like a fumble recovery that sets their offense up in BC territory late in the game. I think this is a defensive win for Edmonton that they desperately need to start the year.
Yeah, I would agree with you in the terms of like recipe to win for Edmonton. I think they have to do it defensively, just because I think there is the most questions on the offense for Edmonton. Even though that probably sounds a little bit weird with all the additions on defense, but like as you guys know, I'm a big Trey Ford fan and want him to do well. But the case is still out on Trey Ford if he's going to be a legitimate starter or not. Obviously, that needs to kind of be proven. I think there needs to be a little bit proven to Nathan Rourke of like what level we're going to see. But Nathan Rourke's a proven professional caliber quarterback, whether you guys like whether people want to debate it or not. I think they're going to, like we saw it in the preseason as well, like when ones versus ones were out there, although I know it wasn't kind of there was a few guys missing for Edmonton's D-line, as well as we were basically playing with Katoy and Eberhardt and a bunch of the backups. But going 8 for 8 against, as Shane said, like that pass rush, I think Rourke's ability to get the ball out will kind of eliminate that a little bit. But if Edmonton does go on to win this game, I think it will be a close game. And can they get a turnover late? I think it's probably one thing that maybe will be something to keep an eye on, because I would probably not probably, like Edmonton's defense is much better than BC's on paper, at least going into the season, especially as you said with the front seven, like Edmonton Argos pretty much bringing over Brinkman, Serezna, and Robbie Smith. And then obviously they just extended the rookie of the year last year, Nick Anderson. Now it's Morgan at linebacker, like very strong up. And then Royce Metchie at safety, like very strong up the middle of the field in defense. But I just think Nathan Rourke will be able to make plays on that defense as well. Like we've seen a little bit of him being able to march the ball down the field. And I'm interested to see like kind of can they take advantage of like the energy in the building as well. Like after the concert kickoff, like the building will be potentially like close to the sellout. I know it's been talked about, but I do kind of wonder if like how many people are going to show up, because I do see a lot of reselling as well of the tickets. So I just think they should hopefully be able to take advantage of the atmosphere coming out with a hot start, and then just kind of keep that cushion of maybe a 3 to 6 point lead, and then hopefully be able to score late to kind of put the game out of reach.
No, that's totally understandable, Blake.
Yeah, I think that it's very similar to Cole. Like I think it'll be a close game. The Elks and the Lions played a couple of close games last year. The Elks, of course, won in Edmonton. The Lions in I believe it was a 4 or 5 week stretch, Shane, where the Elks lost on walk-off field goals every single week. One of those was to the BC Lions, but I just think much similarly to the Montreal and Toronto game that Nathan Rourke, as Cole said, is the proven starter in the CFL. Whether he will be up to the 2022 level, Cole and I have already talked about this. He'll probably never be up to that level again, but how close can he get? And Trey Ford has shown flashes, but he's never put a full season together. I just think the Lions have a better quarterback. I would argue they have the better kicker as well. So if it comes down to a last second field goal with no time on the clock, I'm taking Mr. Automatic every single time. BC Lions by a field goal.
That's understandable. And again, I don't think there's a blowout this week. I think every game is kind of under 10 points. You might have that kind of late field goal to extend it to 10 points, but I don't expect there to be like a 14 plus point game this week. But I agree. I think you can make an argument for and against every team on if they'll win or lose. Personally, I think like there's fors and against for every team in the league right now. It just means we got 3 as of right now. This can make or break the year. Realistically,
I
got
think
three.
there's good parity again in the CFL though too, right? Like Farhan mentioned it as well. Like you could make a case for all the teams in the West. You could maybe even argue like potentially all the teams in the East too. Like at least the first 3. I think Hamilton, maybe there's some questions of them a little bit more. I know Blake has some questions about Ottawa still, but like I think like Montreal, Hamilton, or Montreal, Toronto, and Hamilton, or
I
Ottawa,
don't
excuse me.
think you see a 12-win team this year.
What's that, sorry, Shane?
I don't think we see a 12-win team this year at all.
Yeah, like
I think every team is still 11 wins or under. The parity in this league right now is crazy.
It's great for like entertainment purposes, like week 18 to 21 when like the playoff battle's happening and like that's being brought up of like if this team wins and this team wins and like what that means for playoff implications. Like I think it's gonna be an exciting year. I talked about with Farhan as well. Like there's probably like 10 to 12 like realistically like starting caliber quarterbacks. Even like you could really name a little bit more of like with obviously Davis, Trey, and some of the young guys. You could Drew as well. The last couple of years of getting opportunities. Nathan coming back kind of pushed Vernon to getting an opportunity. Like with Fajardo and MBT, it's like I really think that there's going to be a great product on the field in terms of like the teams are all relatively like close, even in like the power rankings too. Like I feel like there's a great argument of like how teams can kind of fit in like within a power rankings in the CFL now. Like you could probably argue like those first 1 and 2 teams, like maybe Saskatchewan, Montreal, but like from 3 to 9, I feel like is like a legitimate argue for each team, like where they could be.
Yeah, I think if you're a fan of the CFL as a whole, you're excited for this year. I think this will be the best year of CFL football we've had probably a decade. Personally, I think this is gonna be one of the most parity-driven league seasons that we have had in a long time. But yeah, I mean that wraps up today's the week 1 episode of the CFL Weekly Show. Unfortunate that Coach was not able to join us today.
He did it on purpose for sure.
Oh yeah, he didn't want to talk smack about the Rough Riders in case they lost.
Did it on purpose for sure.
Exactly. He'll come back next week. Especially if the Rough Riders win, he'll come back don't disrespect the Rough Riders, all that fun stuff. So that'll be fun.
I would say part of me going for Sass and like being a fan of Sass this year, it tears me apart inside because like that just like gives Coach even more like of an ego boost. So like now we can talk about the Riders being good and stuff. And it's like part of me kind of wants to hate on the Riders, but they're a good squad, boys.
They're a quarter. They unfortunately I don't know. They're a quarter. Like if Trevor Harris gets hurt, I do not trust Jake Mayer to win them more than like 3 games. Like that's just the reality of it, in my opinion. But that'll wrap up today's episode. Remember, like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you throw on notifications so you never miss our live shows or anything else that goes on throughout the season. We've officially made it. It is officially June. We're officially having CFL football, regular season football tomorrow night. The episode will be available on podcast form on Thursday, late Thursday morning. And again, CFL Weekly Show is brought to you by Royal Retros, your go-to spot for any CFL retro gear or CFL PA gear. Use promo code 13th Man Football to get 10% off your first order. They got CFL PA hats, CFL PA gear. They also have CFL All-Star stuff and a bunch of retro CFL jerseys, including the CFL American expansion stuff. So head on over there. There'll be a link in the description below. Hope you all have a good night. Enjoy the weekend of football, and we'll be back here on Wednesday again to recap week 2 and recap week 1 and preview week 2. Where can guys see quickly? Where can people find you on socials?
Yeah, I'll go first. My X handle is at Blake3653, and my Instagram is b.milton97.
Blake's so difficult. I'm just Cole McGarvey, no spaces on Instagram and Twitter. Easy to remember, unlike Blake, although Blake3653, I got to remember now for the amount of times I put it in. That being said, though, you guys can find, obviously, the Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram at the Canadian Football Fanatics, and then you guys can find us on X as well at _CF Fanatics. Other than that, super excited for some CFL football, and go Oilers, boys.
Yeah, go Oilers.
Yeah, it's a tie game now, last I looked, so.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Perfect timing.